for 30 plus years. I've seen every type of child grow up.
Instead of giving me what I wanted, she gave me what I needed, which was truth.
Don't let emotions win. Let truth win.
Do your very best, and you should have a lot of fun while you do it. And the better you get at something, the more fun you're going to have at something.
You moms and dads are wired with everything you need to be a parent to a great kid. Welcome to Parenting Great Kids. This is episode number 15. Wow. When mom or dad is ill, how to live well with adversity. Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Dr. Meg Meeker. Can you believe this is podcast number 15? Well, we've been at this a while, and I don't know about you, but I've been having a ball. I hope you have as much fun as I do. Listen, I need to hear from you. After you listen or before you listen, please go on to iTunes and write a review. I want to hear what you think about the podcast. Is it helping? What kind of things do you want to hear about? What topics do you want covered? My purpose in recording these podcasts is to give you hope and help and encouragement. Every parent, each one of us out there will face adversity. And some of us will feel overwhelmed and even terrified by the adversity that comes our way. A diagnosis of cancer, a dramatic life-changing event like a job loss or a divorce. And when life turns tough, we have a choice about how we'll respond. Will a hardship be our undoing, or will it make us stronger? Thinking about how we will respond is critical to our children, because as we respond, they watch us. And more importantly, their security or fear in that event will revolve around how we respond, what we say and what we express to them and in front of them. In the midst of our pain, we must lead our children and help them by allowing the difficulty to strengthen us, not make us weaker. And this is a choice, friends. You are going to hear today an extraordinary story of a young mother. Her name is Cheryl Wilkinson, and she has 3 young children, and she lived with breast cancer and battled it bravely. It's the story of hundreds of thousands of parents who've confronted life-threatening illnesses like cancer and fought hard. It's a story of strength and love and the blessings that came to her whole family. And I'm so looking forward to sharing Cheryl's story with you. Also, today I'll be featuring a social media question about a mother who is a single mom and wants to know whether she should allow her son to have contact with a father who is less than a great guy. Also, I'm going to share my points to ponder, as I always do, so that you have something to take away and begin to use right away after you listen to the podcast. Parents, we just launched an all-new resources section on my website, and I'd love for you to check it out. I have online courses and toolkits that provide answers to your toughest parenting challenges. I have books that will encourage you as a mom, a dad, or a grandparent, and it's all available online. Go to megmeekermd.com and click on resources and check it out right away. I'm so excited about it. And finally, parents, as a reminder, don't just download the episodes, click subscribe. When you do that, you're joining my parenting revolution, and every new episode we create will automatically show up in your subscribed list. You won't regret it. So parents, thanks for listening. This is episode 15. Stay with us. Let's get into our 3 points to ponder. As I talked with Cheryl, I want you to be thinking about 3 very important things as you prepare for your response when difficult days come. First, don't fear hardship. Our natural inclination is to be afraid of what will happen if I get sick and something terrible happens to me. What will happen if my child is in a car crash? What will happen if I get cancer or I lose my job or my wife walks out on me? But thinking this way only leads to being more afraid. Instead, we can look at hardship as an opportunity to teach us and our children how to live well in the midst of it. And this is an extraordinary gift that we can give our kids, because they too are going to one day experience adversity. Many times I have seen, and I have found this in my own personal life, and I've seen it in patients' lives and in parents' lives, is that the anticipation of something bad happening in some ways can be worse than the actual event itself. Now, that may sound a little bit odd if the actual event is very, very painful, or, a divorce situation, or perhaps a death or a life-threatening illness. But knowing what you're dealing with is very important knowledge, because then you can know how to handle it, how to fight it, how to combat it, how to deal with it. Okay, here's my situation. My wife has just walked out. I'm left with 4 kids. Okay, here's my situation. I have breast cancer, stage 3. Here are my options. Are we going to have treatment? What will the treatment be like? How are we going to talk to our kids? The truth of the matter is, even if you don't have cancer, your life is finite. Every single one of our lives is too short. We always feel that our lives are too short, and lives of loved ones are too short. But adversity does come. So the first point to ponder is, don't fear the hardship. Don't worry about it. Deal with it when it comes, because we have been wired to handle hardship. Second, learn to lean on others. It's very important in the midst of a crisis or an enormous stress in your life to ask for help from loved ones, from friends, from family members. And asking for help is difficult for a lot of mothers and fathers, especially when children are living with you, because you feel that you are the ones, or we are the ones, the parents, who are supposed to make everything okay for our kids. We want to make life good for our children and for ourselves all alone. But the reality is, we can't do it all on our own. We need other people to help make our lives good. We need to learn to ask friends to help us and to accept the help they give us. And in many ways, you don't want to live with your adversity all alone, because when you refuse to ask people for help, you're depriving them of the opportunity and the joy of coming alongside of you and helping you and keeping you standing upright if that's what needs to happen. We need others, and so do our kids. So again, asking for help teaches our kids that leaning on others is healthy and necessary, and even their very strong mothers and fathers need to do it. And when they see us do it, they will turn around as they get older and be comfortable asking for help as well. And finally, when adversity comes, talk openly with your kids about it. Regardless what you do or don't say to your children, when adversity hits you, your kids know it. 3-year-olds know when dad is struggling, and 12-year-olds know if mom has a life-threatening illness. You don't have to say anything. Kids learn to read us because they need us. They need to know what we're going through. They need to know how we're feeling. They can read distress on our face. They can read joy on our face. They can read sadness on our face. They can read fear on our face. So if your kids know what's happening anyway, don't let them live with the unknowing and the mystery. Talk to them about what's going on. Talk to your kids about the trouble. You want to tell them the truth, but you don't want to over-divulge to a point where you scare them. You don't need to go into gory details. But if mom has cancer, you need to tell children that mom has cancer. You don't need to tell her what the treatment's going to be like. You don't need to tell her how much time she may or may not have, because the truth is, you don't know. And let me tell you a secret. Doctors don't know either. They may tell you you have 6 months. And you know what? Most of the time they're wrong. So you have to live every day to the fullest. And you have to hold on to hope. Many times if parents have cancer and they're going through a bad treatment, they want to protect their kids and shield their kids from the sadness that it may bring upon them, so they don't tell the kids that mom is undergoing treatment, or mom is having cancer, or mom is going to have her hair fall out. They hide it from the kids and pretend that nothing bad is happening. Don't do that with your kids. Be honest, be truthful, keep your verbiage very simple so that your kids can grieve as you grieve right beside them. And most importantly, so that you can be there with them when they grieve. So you want to strike that balance between being honest and truthful with your kids, keeping your language very simple so that they can know what to anticipate, so that there are no surprises for them. So let's recap. Don't be afraid of the hardship. Lean on others to help, and talk openly and honestly with your kids about what is going on. Listen in now on a conversation I had with Cheryl Wilkinson, a wife, a mother of 3, and a survivor of breast cancer. I am very excited today to have a very special guest, Cheryl Wilkinson. And Cheryl is a friend of mine. And when we were having dinner, Cheryl, with you and your husband, you began to tell me a story that just mesmerized me. And so I wanted every mom and every dad out there to hear your story, because what really struck me was how you parented in the midst of tremendous adversity. So we're going to talk about that today. Thanks for being with me, Cheryl.
Thanks for having me here.
Yeah. Now, you have 3 children.
Yes.
2 boys and a daughter.
Yes.
And what are their ages?
We have a son who is 18, a son who is 15, and a daughter who's 13.
Okay. And so you really have your hands full.
Yes, they're busy.
Yes. Okay. So Cheryl, when we were having dinner
Yes.
a few months back, you were telling me about a time in your life that was very, very difficult. You were going along, you were teaching school.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you had a conversation with a doctor that changed your life.
Yes,
what was
I did.
that?
I went for a routine mammogram and received the news that day that I had breast cancer. It was in January of 2012.
So your oldest was 14.
Yes.
And then the other 2 obviously were younger than that.
Right.
What did that feel like?
It felt like the bottom dropped out. It was a strange day. There were tornadoes in the area. And so I was sitting in the doctor's office. You know, you do the first mammogram pictures, then they want more pictures, then they want an ultrasound.
Yeah.
And they put you in a tiny little room between times. And while I sat in there, I kept getting text messages that my children were on weather lockdowns.
Ugh.
So there were storms raging.
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Inside, outside,
Yes.
even in tiny little rooms where you were sitting there.
Yes.
Were you alone or was your husband with you?
I was alone. I thought it was going to be a routine trip to the doctor, and it was during a work day, and so I had gone by myself.
And you were teaching.
Yes.
And what happened after that? Tell me about the following 2 months.
That afternoon, I had people go to pick up my children, and it was the day before my husband's 40th birthday, and so we decided to shelf it as best you can and go have dinner, and talking about it at night, praying about it at night, crying about it at night, but during the day, do our jobs.
When did you tell your kids?
We told our kids on January 25th because we waited until I had a positive biopsy result. And that's the day that the positive biopsy result came through. And of course, David was with me that day, and we waited until the kids got home from school, and we sat him down and told him that afternoon.
And what was that meeting like?
That was the hardest meeting our family has ever had. Of course, all 3 of them cried. Nobody asked any questions in that moment. They all kind of retreated to their own separate places. And then that evening, they started asking questions, and our daughter wanted to know when my hair was going to fall out. That was her first concern.
Did any of your kids ask if you were going to die?
Yes, they all asked at some point, not that day, but they all asked at some point if I was going to die.
What did you say?
I said, I hope not.
Because at that point, you really didn't know. Did the doctors tell you how far advanced it was, or did you know?
Not at that point. They said it's probably between 1 or 2. We can't get a really good read on how big the tumor is. We'll know more after your surgery. They could tell us that it definitely was breast cancer, that it hadn't started in someplace else, but that was all they could tell us. And so when the kids started asking you, what does this mean? Are you going to die? My first thought, of course, was to say, no, but I didn't know, and I didn't want to lie to them.
You couldn't tell them. Wow. And as a mother who loves her children, and you have these protective instincts,
Yes.
and you want to tell them, it's okay, Dad and I will take care of it.
Yes.
We're going to make life nice for you again.
Yes.
You can't say that.
No.
And so you tell them there could be a lot of pain.
Yes.
And you're really out of control of that. So what did you do next? How did you went back and you had surgery?
Yes, I had surgery in February, and, we just we made decisions as they came up. That day we decided to leave the kids in school and try to keep their lives as normal as possible.
But they knew you were having the surgery.
But they knew, of course, that I was having the surgery. It's a fine line that you walk between telling them things and being honest with them and not oversharing information.
Right. Can you give us an example?
I wanted them to know that I was having surgery, and they did know that. And then in the surgery, it quickly turned bad, the surgery. They found out that the cancer had spread into my lymph nodes, and I didn't want them to know that at that point. So that was too much information for them to deal with. And so you just pick and choose the information that you're going to share, all the while you're trying to be honest with them and upfront with them.
Right. So how did David, your husband, respond to your illness?
He was as fearful as I was, but he kind of shelved those fears and threw himself into taking care of everybody, taking care of the kids, taking care of the details. I think that he didn't really deal with how rough it was until that day that the surgeon came out and said things aren't going according to plan.
Mm.
So,
and by that, the surgeon meant the surgeries. I'm not making mistakes, but
no.
But we've got more cancer here than you thought.
That's
okay,
right.
So he actually knew before you did.
He did. I woke up the next morning in the hospital thinking everything was fine, the cancer was gone, and I had all the reconstruction surgery as planned. And he tried really hard not to be the one to have to tell me that that's not the way it worked out. But I kept asking questions. I could tell something wasn't right. And he had to share with me that it was probably closer to stage 3 than 2. Mm-hmm. And
do you wish that would have been the doctor, or was it better coming from your husband?
It was better coming from David. I know it was hard for David, but it was much better coming from him, because we were alone and we could have our moment about that and grieve that.
I hope you're enjoying my conversation with Cheryl as much as I am, and that you're learning and feeling inspired. We need to take a break for a quick moment. Do not go away, because you'll want to hear the rest of my conversation with Cheryl. Friends, one of the reasons why advertisers love this podcast is that they know we have the best listeners. Right now, we have a survey that I'd like you to take to help us learn more about our audience. Just go to podsurvey.com/Meg. Survey only takes 5 minutes. We're going to ask you some questions about yourself and what you like to buy, but it's completely anonymous. Your answers help us find advertisers that are well-matched to you, your interests, and the show. When you're finished, you can enter a monthly drawing to win a $100 Amazon gift card. Even if you've taken a podcast listener survey before, I'd like to ask you to take ours so you can help us support the show. Don't forget that you have a chance to win that $100 gift card. Once again, that's podsurvey.com/MEG. Thanks for helping us find the best advertisers so that we can keep this podcast show free. I want to tell you about one of my new favorite things. It's HelloFresh. HelloFresh is the meal kit delivery service that makes cooking fun, easy, and convenient. Each week, HelloFresh creates new delicious recipes with step-by-step instructions designed to take around 30 minutes for everyone from novices to seasoned home cooks short on time. From creating the recipes and planning the meals to grocery shopping and even delivering all of the pre-measured ingredients, HelloFresh delivers right to your door so you can skip the trip. You can order 3, 4, or 5 different meals per week designed for either 2 or 4 people, all delivered to your doorstep in a special insulated box for free. I have tried HelloFresh and I love it. Fresh vegetables, fresh apples, fresh meat. Nothing is frozen. The spices are in there. And I feel good giving it to my family because there's nothing fatty in there. I'm excited to tell my listeners of Parenting Great Kids that you can get $35 off your first week of deliveries. Just go to HelloFresh.com and enter MEG, M-E-G, all capital letters, when you subscribe. So you first got the diagnosis, which was like a sledgehammer over your head.
Yes.
And then you got through that, and then you got another hit, and then you got another hit.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That was a very, very hard time.
It was a very hard time.
I wish that our listeners could see your face. And you're such a tender woman, but I can just see how the anguish that it was for you. And that's really why I wanted you to tell your story, because there are a lot of couples out there and a lot of parents, single parents, married, who go through life-threatening illnesses, and there are days they're parenting their kids wondering if they're going to be there next year or the next year, and that's so hard. So then you went on and you had different types of treatment. What treatment did you have?
I had 4 rounds of chemotherapy. They started talking about maybe having radiation, but it ended up I didn't have radiation. So I had 4 rounds of chemotherapy, and then I went back and had the reconstructive surgery. It was about a 9-month process.
Okay. So 9-month process of treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And that included your recovery from your surgery. So you had surgery, and then you got walloped with the chemotherapy. What was it like being a mother, just physically? What were the challenges just getting through the days with chemotherapy and having your kids still pretty young?
Well, getting out of bed was a challenge. Making sure that they were getting where they needed to be. I was a teacher, but I only worked part-time because I was still driving the car, the kids to school and packing the lunches. And the blessing in all of that was that my mom came and lived with us for about a month, and she did those things for me. But just to get out of bed and...
Was getting out of bed difficult emotionally or physically?
Both.
It
was difficult both ways.
Did you become depressed?
I don't think I became depressed during the treatment. I wouldn't say it was depression. I battled fear.
Okay.
I battled fear. And I think just the hardest part was I wanted to still be present for my kids, but I wanted to be authentic to them too. I wanted them to know that this wasn't easy, but I didn't want them to go to school worried either.
So in addition to you dealing with your grief and dealing with the physical changes in your body because of chemotherapy and not being able to perform at your normal mom level, you were trying to parent your kids in a way that taught them we have a hardship, and then also here's how you get through hardship when you were learning yourself.
Yes, that's
so. What was your secret? How did you do that?
We decided on truth, like I said before, and we just would say to them, I don't know. I know God knows. I know that that if you talk to him about this, that he'll be there for you, that Dad and I will be here for you, we just kept pointing him back to God, I think. Just kept pointing him back to God.
Was there ever a time when you wondered if that was going to work?
Yes. As I'm pointing them back to God, I'm saying to God, don't let them down.
Yeah.
Don't let them down.
Or what if he doesn't come through?
Right.
What if my children cry out as I know how they cry out and you don't deliver?
Yes. I had a lot of conversations with him about that. Like, are you going to be faithful to my kids through this? And are you going to make this turn out all right? Because that's what I thought faithful should look like. And
but what you think faithful should look like and what it feels like are sometimes two very different things.
Yes.
Yeah, because this is the real deal.
Yeah.
This is either he's there or he isn't.
Right.
and you're going to come through or you're not.
Right.
And I'm the mom, and I need to know.
Right. There's a lot of that.
There's a lot of that. And I'm sure you were probably pretty frustrated with him at that point, and you're frustrated with life.
Yes.
And so it's hard to go talk to an invisible being that you're frustrated with and say, okay, I need you to give my kids what I can't give them right now.
Yes.
Did he do it?
He did. He gave them one day recently after you and I had dinner. I was driving in the car with all three of them, and I was telling them about our conversation, and I asked them, did God come through for you when I had cancer? Did it strengthen your prayer lives? And all three of them said, Mom, that's when we got a prayer life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
You don't wish that on any child or anybody, but
No.
that's true, because at a very early age, they had to figure that out.
They had to figure it out.
What a lot
for
of people
themselves.
figure out when they're probably 40.
Right. When I was figuring it out at
That's right.
41, they
Yes.
were figuring it out in middle school and elementary school.
Yes. Cheryl, talk to the husbands out there who just found out that their wife has a life-threatening diagnosis, or maybe they're going through chemotherapy with their wives. What do their wives need from them?
They need to know that they can handle the family situation without their wives. I needed to know that if things didn't turn out the way I wanted them to turn out, that David could handle it, that he was going to be present, that he was aware of what they needed, and the moms take care of the running around, but they also take care of the emotional. And I needed to know that he was plugged into that. He knew what that was.
So husbands need to, and the fathers need, or even if the parents are divorced and the mom has a life-threatening illness, she needs to know from her ex-husband or her husband that he is going to be there for the kids and parent them really well. So he needs to give that reassurance to her.
Yes.
What other kind of support did you need other than knowing that your kids would be okay? What did you need? Did you need some physical help? Did you need meals? Did you need him to call your friends? Did you need him to never lose his temper?
I needed him to be as normal as possible in certain situations. I needed him to sit and watch a TV show and laugh with me. I needed him to be a place where life wasn't about cancer and distractions.
So he brought in normal.
Yeah.
He brought in the normal and maintained normal. Talk to the mothers out there going through this. Think of the woman who's driving in her car right now who has a diagnosis of cancer. She's going through chemotherapy. She's got 3 young kids and she needs help. And you're sitting there having coffee with her. What would you tell her?
I think I would tell her that it's okay to feel what she's feeling, that it's okay to have days where life doesn't look like it did before, because I don't know that it has ever gone back to the way it looked before. So there are days when your energy is going to be low and you're not going to get off the couch, and that's okay. So
did you feel guilty?
I did in the beginning. And then another way David helped me was just to say, this is where you're at right now. So instead of me getting off the couch, my daughter would come and sit with me and we would do her homework on the couch. Or I would lay down and one of the boys would sit there and talk to me sitting on the floor. Or we just negotiated the health that I was feeling, or the level of health I was feeling at any one moment. And don't feel guilty. Don't feel like you can't, just because you can't give them healthy meals, people can do that for you. Ask for help. Ask for help.
That's a tough one.
It is a tough one for moms. And I was blessed that I didn't have to ask for help. I had a church that came around and just provided help. But I would say definitely ask for help, and remember that God's doing a work in them that you cannot see when all of this is going on.
Right. So how are you today? What's the state of your current health?
The state of my current health is that I am cancer-free.
Yeah.
I claim the day of my surgery as cancer-free, so I've been cancer-free for 4 years. One of my friends told me when I started this process to remember that cancer doesn't have to be terminal, but it is chronic, and I didn't understand what she meant by that. But I still deal and probably will always deal with the after effects of the treatment of cancer.
Does that cause you limitations, physical pain?
It causes me limitations. The medicine causes me physical pain. Every time one of those things crops up, I battle the desire to fight it on my own or to feel guilty that I'm not doing what I need to be doing for my kids, and just have to be reminded myself that I'll do what I can do and God will do it through me.
To give yourself tremendous grace.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Well, Cheryl, you have been a delight. I am so grateful that you were strong enough and allowed yourself to be vulnerable enough to tell your story. And this has been hard. I mean, it's a really hard story to tell, but it's a very important one because what you experienced, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of women around the world at least experience. And they need to know that there's hope, and they need to know how to get through. And it's not a pretty picture, but you are filled with so much grace. It just kind of exudes from you. So
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Thank you.
All right, let's get social. I want to hear from you and interact with you. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can go to megmeekermd.com and click on the links. You can send me a question on Facebook or email it to me at askmeg@megmeekermd.com, or send me a tweet at megmeekermd. I have a terrific question here from Susanna. She writes,
Hi, Dr. Meg. I read your book, Strong Mothers, Strong Sons. But right now I have a problem. I've been a single mom since I was pregnant, and my son goes to daycare. He's been asking me why he doesn't have a dad. I think his friends at daycare are asking him about it. What should I say? His father wasn't the best choice I made, and he ended up in jail. I've blocked him from my phone and Facebook, but I'm wondering if I should let him have contact with my son. Thank you.
Well, Susanna, you're in a very difficult position that unfortunately many single moms and dads are in, and that is that they have an ex-spouse who has deserted the child for one reason or another, or who's gotten into some serious trouble, drugs, alcohol, gone to jail, or just is living a life that is very unhealthy for a child. So you have a very legitimate and good question. My first response to you would be a question, and that is, if you introduce your son to his dad, is his dad going to be dangerous to him? In other words, if dad spends time with him, is he going to abuse him? Is he going to hurt him? Or is he going to get him into some kind of a trouble? If dad is a dangerous man, then no, your son should not be introduced to him. I think that you should leave well enough alone, and since dad lives very far from you and doesn't seem to be interested in parenting his son, I would simply say to your son, yes, he has a dad, but daddy has had some problems, and for many reasons that you'll talk about when he's grown up, daddy can't be here with him. It doesn't have anything to do with him. It's just daddy has some struggles that are grown-up struggles, and just leave it at that. On the other hand, if dad is otherwise a good guy and wants to be involved in your son's life, I think it's perfectly fine to give him limited exposure to your son. And the reason I say limited is this. Many times the parent who has left the home at the beginning wants to reconnect with the child. And they're very enthusiastic, and they promise kids all sorts of things. And they say they're going to do this, and they're going to come around every weekend. And one weekend they show up, and then 3 weekends later they show up, and then 6 weekends later they show up, and then eventually they stop showing up. And they basically set the child up for heartache. If you anticipate that that's the kind of thing that's going to happen with your ex-husband, I think it's really important to spare the child that kind of pain, because young children, that's a very hard thing for young children to deal with. Instead, what I would do, if you believe that your son's father is not going to be a man who's going to want to be consistently in his life, he's not a man who's going to want to care for him and nurture him and could potentially be dangerous for him, I would encourage you to distance your son from his dad. Tell him the things that I told you about. But I would also, very importantly, find a good man in your life, an uncle, a father, grandfather, pastor, somebody who can spend some time around your son, who can be a good role model to your son of what a good man looks like. Every single mother needs to do this if you have a son or if you have a daughter, because children need men in their lives. There's a reason there's a mom and there's a reason there's a dad. Fathers bring children things that mothers can't give and vice versa. So it's very important for your son to have a good male role model. He needs good male affirmation. He needs healthy male affection, and he needs healthy male attention. He needs to know and see how you are treated by a man, and he needs to experience how he is treated by a man and how to behave as a man as he gets older. So unfortunately, it doesn't sound like that can be your ex-husband, but I encourage you very, very strongly to find a good father role model around. And in the meantime, just do the very best you can. You sound like a really great, involved, strong mother. As always, parents, keep sending me your questions at askmeg@megmeekermd.com or send me a tweet at megmeekermd. It is important that as we go through any type of adversity, that we do so in a manner that's going to help our kids because they're watching. And remember, living through difficulties can be one of the hardest but the greatest character building lessons our children will have. And we have the choice regarding how we respond to adversity. And then we need to ask ourselves, what will we teach our children along the way? Before I recap my points to ponder, I'd like to thank my friend Cheryl Wilkinson. I'd like to thank her for her boldness in telling her story, in being vulnerable and sharing her heart and sharing her family's experiences and talking about such an intimate part of her life and really inviting us in to her life to hear the struggles that she went through. Let me recap my points to ponder. First of all, don't be afraid of the hardship. Lean on others to help, and talk openly and honestly with your kids about what is going on. So friends, remember, great kids are raised, not born.
We hope you've enjoyed listening to Parenting Great Kids. You can like Dr. Meg on Facebook and follow her on Twitter at MegMeekerMD. Just as a reminder, go to megmeekermd.com and sign up for the newsletter for giveaway opportunities and updates. And don't forget to share the podcast, write us a review, and click subscribe.